supplemental questions for your various schools that you're applying to. We're going to look specifically at Chapel Hill because that's the first deadline, and I know several of you are applying there. But since everybody is applying to different schools, what we'll end up doing is I'll just give you a sample of this is where you find your supplemental questions and kind of how to organize them so you make sure you get everything done in time. Before we do that, however, and this is going to be not just for you guys, well, this is all for everyone, but not just those of you who are here today, but if you are watching this recording later, or if anybody talks to someone who doesn't get to see the recording, please encourage them to add Tracy and or me as their advisors so we can review things before you submit. So I'm just going to go over that real quickly because I think we might have missed a step when we were talking about it before. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see it? Do you see my screen? Okay, great. All right, so I'm logging into the Common App. And I think there's a little bit of confusion because it seems like it should be something where you can add an advisor under Common App, but actually what you have to do is go into one of your schools. So I'm just going to click on App State here. And then you see over on the side, it says questions, recommenders, and FERPA, review and submit, Common App. I'm not sure if it's going to show me every option here because I've done it already, but I'm going to click here. And I already did the FERPA release form. I wish there was a way for me to undo it, but I don't think I can. Oh, here we are. Okay, great. So you can see I have to acknowledge that every school that I've attended may release all records, et cetera. So that's about your transcript, et cetera. And then you have to select one of these options. You say, I waive my right to review all recommendations and supporting documents, or I do not waive. You need to click waive. There's a expectation of trust that comes with your teachers or whoever is writing a recommendation for you that they get to have an honest assessment of you, and hopefully because you've chosen wisely, they're going to be somebody who you have a good relationship with. So you really should click I waive my right here. I mean, you have the choice not to, but that's what we would recommend. And then you click here, I understand that my waiver or no waiver selection above pertains to all colleges to which I apply. So that means I'm doing this form under App State, but it applies to everywhere I apply to. Is everyone with me? Then I hit save and close. And this is where I can now add recommenders. So I can invite recommenders here. I can invite a counselor, which I need to do from my school, who's going to do the school report. I have invite teachers. This right here where it says required 0, optional 3, that is specific to App State. So other schools might have others. And then other recommender, I can add other recommenders if I want to. And here you'll note, because I'm not actually, this is a shock to you all, I know. I am not applying to be a first-year student in college. So I put Tracy in as my advisor. She advises me in all sorts of ways. So I put her in there. Now let's say if I wanted to take her away. Okay, so this is what I would see if I've never done this before. I would click invite advisor, and then I'm going to put in Tracy at Boost Admissions, or whatever email you have for her. Then I'll put Tracy Alexander, and then I'll hit invite. And then she gets an invitation, and some of you have already done this, and that's fine. If you haven't already, please do so. This is really important. All it does is allows us to look at your application and make sure that you have everything filled out correctly. We might catch something that seems sort of minor, or it might be a big deal, and we can give you feedback before you submit your applications. What you need to do, though, is you need to put enable preview. What this means is that this allows your counselor or advisor to review the application. You have to do this for us to have full access to review your application. So then you hit enable. So even if you in the past have added Tracy or me, you still have to put enable preview. So I could do it again if I wanted to put my information in, but you probably get the gist. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Hey, Marjan.
Yes.
So I have a question about the counselors. So the students, they need to know that the counselor, they're the ones that are going to send their transcripts, so they wouldn't have to like request that in any other way for
I don't
those
believe
schools.
so.
Is
I believe
that
that's
correct?
correct. So I'm going to hit here and I would put in the information. And what that will do, if I hit that, would be you must invite a school counselor who will complete the school report and other forms for you. That allows for the Common App system to have your transcript and other information. So it should mean that that is taken care of once your counselor is, selected. But if you don't do that, then it makes it a lot more complicated system. And you have to do it in order for your school report to go to them. So yes.
Mhm. And you can see that, like they can see that it's not started. And I guess, Laura, there's a place once they do submit it, then it says it has, like the counselor has. Is that correct? And because when you put your counselor name in, it says like they can,
Mhm.
what report they can send, and it says not started by them.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen this year any counselors who have done it yet. So
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
told the
yeah.
students to
So,
ask their counselor when they go by.
So, and
mhm.
even more, so for this kind of stuff, you guys, it can be confusing to wonder like, well, I invited recommenders and I put in teachers and I made you my advisor. So do I have to do a counselor? You need to do all of these things. And that's why it's really important that you add Tracy or me or Kim or Laura, somebody as an advisor so we can see if you haven't done everything you need to do. And this is particularly important for the Chapel Hill application because it's due next week if you're applying early. And I know that many of you are interested in Chapel Hill, or it might be your number one schools. So we want to make sure that something little like not having checked a box doesn't prevent you from being fully considered. Did that answer your question, Kim?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I think so. I just want them to know that that's the way their transcripts is going to be sent, that they don't have to go to like Miss Sloan at Ashe County and say, will you send my transcripts? Because
Right.
it's going to be sent through the Common App,
Right.
correct?
Exactly. So the only reason you might need to go to someone at the school to get transcripts sent is if you're applying to schools outside of the Common App and they require you to do it separately, but that would be on an individual basis. Okay. Any other questions about this? So please, you guys, if you haven't done so already, please add us as advisors today. And it'll just take you a couple of minutes, and then when the time comes, we can look everything over before you hit submit. All right. So there we go. Now I'm going to go back to my dashboard here, and now we're going to talk about your supplemental questions. So there's a couple of ways that you can get at these. You can either go to my colleges, click on a school. So I'm going to go to NC State here, go to questions, and then you see that there are different questions that you have to answer. So like when you want to start, if you're going to submit scores. I've been going through this with other people, so I just have some random answers in here. And then you have questions about you have your short answer questions. So they have some specific questions that they'll ask you. I'm just going through things so you can see where you might think that you're going to find the answers and then you actually don't. Um, so here is a short answer question that you have to answer. Explain why you selected the academic programs above and why you were interested in studying these at NC State. So this is a 0 to 250 word answer that you definitely, for all of your short answer questions, you want to complete them outside of the Common App. That way you can edit them, make sure you proofread for any spelling or grammatical errors. You can get some feedback before you put it in there. A couple of you have been working with, and you'll have your answer built in here, and I'm like, could you just take it out for please take it out and we'll look at it together. I'm afraid you're going to hit something that'll send it off and we won't be able to take it away. That won't really happen, but I want you to get in the habit of practicing outside of this text box. So this is not the full thing. I mean, you might be looking at this and think, wow, I would have thought that there was more to this. So let's go back to college information and see, all right, well, maybe there's some information down here. So you see your application deadlines, policies regarding tests, etc. And then you get to the writing requirements. And this is where you have to check. Even if you are in the schools and you think you've gotten all the questions, you have to go down here because this is going to tell you what you actually need to get done for each individual school. So the Common App personal essay, that's your big essay that we worked on over the summer and you might have been revising since then, where you have the 7 options, it's up to 650 words. Those you hopefully have, completed, or you're doing some very minor last finishing touches on. The college questions are the ones that are specific to each school. So I'm going to click on these and we'll see. Again, this takes us back to questions. And we're going to just go through them individually to make sure that we have everything. So we did this before. Explain why you selected the academic programs you did. You have to go through all these points anyway. So questions about, contacts, family. This is not fine. We're not getting there. We got to keep going. Residency, you have to complete this. You have to just check that you are a resident of North Carolina. Let's go to more about you. Okay, so this is where NC State has decided to house their extra questions. Not every school puts them in the exact same spot, which is super frustrating and annoying. But that's why you just have to go through every single button to make sure that you're finding the questions. Here it says, discuss any other obstacles and or hardships that you have encountered that have affected you personally or academically and how you dealt with them. Now, anybody notice anything about this question that gives you pause in terms of whether or not you have to complete it? And maybe looking down here will give you a hint at a glance. Well, we're a small group. I'll give you the answer. It's fine. There's no red asterisks here. So this is a question that you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but you certainly can. So if you've experienced any obstacles or hardships that you think have affected you personally or academically, you can answer this, but you want to make sure that you read the question fully, because in this case, it's not just asking you about the hardship, but they want to show how you're resilient. So they want to see that you dealt with them in a specific way. So if you opt to do a non-red asterisk required question, you would put it here, and it's a maximum of 250 words. Now this one you have to do. This is the big extra question for NC State. So NC State is committed to building a just and inclusive community, one that does not tolerate unjust or inhumane treatment and that denounces it clearly and loudly. Please describe what those words mean to you and how you will contribute to a more diverse and inclusive NC State environment. So they've prompted you here. They've said, we want a diverse community where everyone is treated humanely and justly, and we are inclusive with everyone. So you're going to need to support this statement, but then talk about how you will contribute to it. This is required. So again, you're going to practice this outside of the text box here, but you only have 250 words. So for most of your short answer questions, you need to just get to it. It's not like your big essay where you have like maybe a kind of flowery introduction, or you start with a story and then you work your way to your main point. You just got to say what you need to say here. You want to take advantage, especially of these short questions, of the number of words you have available. So 250 words is not a ton. So you want to make sure that you get everything you need here. So let's say, for instance, that I am applying to NC State, okay? And I want to make sure that I do these questions as well as I possibly can. I'm going to copy this question and I'm going to create I've got a document here. I'm doing it as a Google Doc so I can share it with someone to see. And I'm going to put my questions in. So here's a question. I know it's for NC State, but I might want to go ahead and put a header on it. And I'm going to go back and say, okay, 250 words. I put it over here. And then I know that I have to answer this. Now, if I think I want to answer this other question, I would put that in here too. If I'm not going to answer it, then I wouldn't. So I put that one there. This is also the 250 words. And now I know that I've got these to do. I'm going to keep going for a second just to make sure that there's nothing that I've forgotten. And I know that I have actually, right? Because there's this academic question that's required up here. So this is also a 250 word question. I'm going to put it here. It's red because I've got to change the font. So those I believe are going to be it for NC State, but let's continue through this list just to make sure. So other information, these are just drop-down questions, university honors and scholars programs. Now, if I want to do one of these extra programs, let's say I say yes, then I have another question I have to answer. If I say no, I don't. That's going to be individual to each of you. Same for down here, University Scholars Program. If I say yes, then I have another essay. I'm not trying to freak you guys out with all of these options, but it's really important that you go through line by line and make sure that you're not skipping anything because you might be missing out on an opportunity. And if you say really want to go to State or Chapel Hill, and part of the reason you want to go is because of a specific program or the honors college or something like that, and you don't answer their essay, you're just not going to be eligible. And oftentimes these are things that you can't join later. So you just want to make sure that you have it all. I just want to take a second though. Does anybody have any questions about what we have so far here? Take a breath. It's a lot. I know. I'm not trying to dissuade you from applying to college. I really am not. I'm trying to encourage you to be organized so it won't be so scary. Okay, let's go back and look at it for a second more. Oh, Ceci, did you have a question?
Yeah, so on Chapel's application, they had this question about like if we wanted to do travel abroad, but it was this certain program where it was the first semester or the first year that you go to college. Um, so I put no for that one, but if I do want to go like travel abroad later, will I still have that option later?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's usually just like a program where you're going to live in a residential community or you're taking, if it's a major that you have to declare before you go, that kind of thing. Those are the sorts of, or if it's for a scholarship, you might need to fill out a form or answer a question sooner.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back here. And so we have done all of this. Let's say we're going to go back to all that later. I am going to go back to college information because one piece that's missing from my list is having deadlines. So I want to apply to NC State for the fall of 2021. If I'm going to apply early action, then I need to know that all those supplemental questions need to be done by November 1st. If I want to apply regular decision, then I have until January 15th. But let's say I'm going to get everything done really far in advance. So I know that November 1st is my deadline. So I go here and I put November 1. And that tells me that if I added those other questions or just these are all due by November 1. And that helps me organize and prioritize my answers because I've got other colleges that I'm applying to that might have earlier or later deadlines. So let's go back to the elephant in the room, which is Chapel Hill, because several of you are applying there. And if you're applying early, which I hope many of you are, you can see, if you don't know already, that your application is due next week, which is soon. So let's go back now that we're in Chapel Hill and we know that it's going to be the 15th. I'm going to go here and put UNC Chapel Hill, October 15th. Now, if you're applying regular decision, then this is not your deadline, and you should put it in your list accordingly. But let's just say this is what you're going to do. You are going to go to questions, and we're going to go through it just to make sure that we have everything that we're supposed to have. So you're going to put in when you plan to apply, fee waivers, all that sort of stuff. Let's go to academics, see what they have here. For them, the academic interest is just, I'm picking majors and minors that I might be interested in. So I don't have to write anything on this. So keep going. Activities. So for them, this is a separate point where you talk about, let's read this out loud actually, just to kind of see, because they have you upload a document, which is unusual. We'll hope you share with us the activities that you found especially worthwhile. We also hope you won't feel compelled to tell us everything you've ever done, or worse yet, to do things that mean little to you just because you think we expect them. Low profile pursuits can be just as meaningful. For example, being in a club or caring for a friend, etc. For these reasons, although we're glad to receive complete resumes, we don't require or encourage it. Instead, if you choose to submit something that goes beyond what you're providing through the Common App, keep it brief. Focus less on including everything and more choosing and explaining the things that have meant the most to you and upload it here. That's kind of nuts. I'm sorry. That's a crazy requirement for you guys. So if you wanted to go into that, but this is not an essay, so we're not going to go into this right now for ourselves, but just note that you have the opportunity for Chapel Hill to elaborate on some activities. Okay, contexts. We're not going to have an essay here. Family. Residency, again, you have to say that you're a North Carolina resident. Honor code and community standards. Here, these are drop down and boxes that you tick, saying that you agree to the policies, that you've never been charged with a felony, and so on and so forth. Okay, here we go. Short answer questions. This is where it's going to be. So you guys have probably already looked at this, but keep in mind that what you do here is they have 3 prompts and you have to do 2 of these 3. So you're going to select of these 2 which one you want to do. So let's say I'm going to do the first one here. Expand on your identity. How has this aspect of your identity shaped your life experiences thus far? So I click on that. And then I'm going to put my answer here. Well, it changed it, but I'm going to put my answer here. I want you to note a couple of things here. You're doing 2 of these prompts, as I mentioned, and you respond in 250 to 250 words. So on the NC State one, the limit was 250, but it was 0 to 250. This one is much narrower. They don't want you to give them a 100-word response. They want something a little bit more elaborate. So this is 200 and 250 words. I'm going to put, let's say I'm going to do the first 2 responses here. Is it not going to let me do it? No, they don't want me to copy and paste it, I guess. Let's see if oh, there we go. So I'm going to go to Chapel Hill, and put this here. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this bottom one, let's say. So I'm just picking the 2 that I'm going to do, whatever they may be. And I'm going to put here that this is 200 to 250 words. 200 to 250 words. Okay, so I want to read this little blurb here too, because this might help me in how I decide to answer my questions. Carolina aspires to build a diverse and inclusive community. We believe that students can only achieve their best when they learn alongside students from different backgrounds. In reading your responses, we hope to learn that being a member of such a community, learn what being a member of such a community would mean to you. So they have given you a hint here that they, like with the other question, want you to talk about the ways that being a diverse person and being adding diversity in an inclusive environment is important to you as well. So if you decide to do, say, this first answer, expand on an aspect of your identity, which could be about religion, culture, race, sexual or gender or identity, affinity group, etc., then you are, that fits pretty well, that you can answer that in a direct way, how you will be part of an inclusive, diverse community. Now, if you want to answer these other questions, like if you could change one thing about where you live, what would it be and why? You might not necessarily think, I want to change where I live to talk about diversity and being inclusive. So you need to make sure that your response here does touch on that, because they've already told you that that's what they're looking for. So you want to read everything really, really carefully to make sure that you're not missing what their intention is with the question. The same thing goes for the third question. Describe someone who you see as a community builder. What actions has that person taken? How has their work made a difference in your life? Again, talking about building community, and if you can touch on diversity and inclusivity, I can't pronounce it. Anyway, you want to make sure that you're touching on those things, because again, that's what they have asked you to do. So I'm going to come back to you guys for a second to look at you. Here's the thing. I just see your icons, but that's okay. Several of you, I know from having worked with you on essays, talked about identity in your Common App essay, right? You talked about ethnic background or language differences, or, growing up in the community that you grew up in. And you might find that you would be pretty repetitive if you just took what you put in those essays and then rehashed it in this response. And that's not going to add anything for you. That's not going to tell them anything more about you than they would have known just by reading your essay. So you need to think, how can I respond to this differently so they know more about me, not the same thing twice? Does anybody have any questions about that? Because that can be kind of tricky.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, in mine, we talked about like briefly about like how I'm active in my church, but I didn't go like specifically into like what religion I'm in and what else I did. So, is it okay if I talk about that
I
in
think
my
that's
short essay?
I think yes. I think that would be fine. And I was specifically thinking of you, Ceci, because we've been working. So if you touch on something, but it's not the whole focus of your essay, I think it's okay to use this as an opportunity to elaborate on that aspect of your identity. However, if you talked about, if like let's say for a second that religion was the main focus of your essay, and then you go into these short answers and you just double down on why religion is so important to you, it tells them that it's really important, but it doesn't tell them another thing about you, which is what they're trying to learn. So if you touch on it in your main essay, okay. If it's the focus of your main essay, you need to figure out another way to respond to this question. It doesn't have to be entirely different, doesn't need a completely different response, but it needs to shed light on a different aspect of your personality or what's important to you.
Okay.
Kim or Laura, do you guys have any other thoughts on that?
No, I feel like you've really covered it. I know that it's the challenge for some of these guys is that each school has a different, has a different question. So it's so individualized.
Right. Yeah. This is one of the, I think it's almost cruel that college applications are so involved and they happen while you're in school. But that's why we're here. That's why we're doing these meetings, is that we can help you with it, because it's just too much if you're on your own. Anybody else? Okay, well, we'll just keep going for a second here. We'll look to make sure that we're not missing anything else. So you're going to do 2 of these prompts, 200 to 250 words each. You're going to make sure, this is, again, really important that somebody's looking this over for you. So if they see that your short answer is just a duplicate of your main essay, then give us some time that we can give you feedback so we can make you be as complex of an applicant and for the reader, so they know as much about you as possible. Okay, so you're going to do the 2 responses. Let's make sure that we're not missing anything else here. So these are drop downs. You can put people that, you know, you authorize to look at your stuff. Global opportunities. Ceci, is this what you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So if this is something that you're planning to apply for, you would click yes here, and then you would have another short answer question. But I'm guessing most of you are not intending to go abroad your first year. I would say kind of a bummer, but given COVID and we don't know how that's going to work out, I wouldn't anticipate studying abroad first semester of my freshman year. That's an unfortunate situation that we're dealing with. But I would say, you know, definitely study abroad if you can make that happen and you're interested, but probably wait a little bit later into your college career. Okay, excel at Carolina. This is about, it's an honors program. So let's say you want to apply to that, then you would have another essay. I mean, not essay, you know, short response here. And you have to click more specific information that you'd like to be considered for. Let's say I want to do this. There's not going to be a another. Oh, you can only do 3. Select fewer than 3 options. You can only do 2. So if you are interested in any of these, you need to put those in. Dual enrollment. This is where you put in any dual enrollment courses you've done, military service information. I'm guessing it's going to be no for most of you. Let's put yes, just to make sure that we don't have any questions. It's just, they're just wanting to know more specific information, but there's no essay, etc. Okay, so if we go back to our document, we know that by next week, we need to do 2 of these questions. So we're going to get on those right away. Let's just add a couple more into the mix so we can see how this will build up. So let's say you're applying to app, which is probably the case for several, if not all of you guys. I'm going to go down here, see the writing requirements, go to college questions. Thankfully, app does not have as many. It's going to be under interest statement for them. But again, you're going to go through all of these lines to make sure that you have everything you need. It's a minimum of 1 word. I don't recommend a 1-word answer. 250 words is your max. So we're going to take this question and put it over here. So app state. I'm going to put up to 250. And I go back, I look again. Let's just read over the question. Please describe why you're interested in attending Appalachian State. An interest statement gives us the ability to know you beyond your grades and test scores. Responses are an important factor in distinguishing admissible candidates within the applicant pool. You can type directly into the box, but you're not going to do that. You're going to paste it from another source. Okay, so let's go back up to college information. And I can see I'm applying for fall. Let's say I'm doing early action. That's November 1st. If I'm doing regular decision, it's later. So I'm going to put November 1. And then I know that I have this. Because we are here, I'm like pointing. You can't see me, I don't think, but I'm pointing at App State out my window right now. And I teach in a specific program. I want us to make sure that we haven't missed any opportunities. So let's go to questions again and see if there's anything that we should have covered. So for academics, I put my major. Residency, I'm going to say where that I'm a North Carolina resident. I'm not sure where this is. Have you seen Kim or Laura, if you wanted to do the Honors College or the or Watauga Residential College or any of those where those questions are?
They actually have those on the My Mountaineer portal. It's a separate scholarship application.
Okay.
And so they won't see those until they submit the Common
okay.
App. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we actually have those questions that I'm sharing those questions with our students. There's like 3, right, Laura, that they can go ahead and start if they want, but they don't have to submit those yet with the application.
Yes, basically once they submit the Common App, then they get access to that portal, and those are due November 15th. So in some cases, depending on when they get their portal set up, they have less than 2 weeks to do those parts. But it's not really too bad, so that's a reasonable amount of time.
I will tell you, having been in on some conversations about the crafting of the Watauga residential question, don't use the word community too much. People get sick of reading like, I love being a part of a community. A community is great. Communities are good. So all of these things, they get lots and lots of applications. You want to make sure that what you're saying is genuine, but it also doesn't over, doesn't overstate the most obvious elements of what they're asking you. So again, I mentioned this because you want to make sure that you stand out. You want to make sure that they see you and they understand who you are and how you're going to contribute to the university. So I'm going to make a tweak here to so I've got 3 schools and their questions here. Rather than have it just by school, I might want to do it by date. So if I say, I want to say everything that's due by October 15th, I'm going to have here. And then I'm going to have, and then that way I know that everything that comes under there, and then maybe I have something that's due November 15th. And then I'll put those schools in as well. So what this tells me is that I am going to do my short answers in the order that I see them. I'm not going to start with a school down at the bottom when I know that I have deadlines that are earlier. I want to make sure that I'm getting these done in a timely manner. And maybe part of an answer here can be replicated in a different answer, but I need to make sure that I get these done because this deadline is sooner. So what you'll end up doing is you'll go through all of your schools, whatever they may be. Some schools don't have any supplemental questions, and that's awesome. Most will have at the very minimum a why our school question, like App State has. And you just want to make sure that you're saying something specific to that school in that case. You don't want to have a general response that could fit for anywhere because that's not telling them anything about you understanding who they are and why you want to attend their school. Okay. Well, I don't know what I'm doing here. Sorry. Does anybody have any questions? Or want to review a portion, or is there a specific school you guys want to look at their questions to make sure that we haven't missed them? You guys are very talkative today. I know this feels like a lot to do this extra task of organizing your answers and not just like doing them as you see them. But I think for most of you, having it organized and knowing like, okay, I did that school, I'm done, move on to the next one will really take some of the stress off of the process because it'll make you very clear on what you've accomplished and what you still have to do. And then also what it does is if you have 2 schools that ask basically the same question about diversity, let's say, you can look at an answer that you did earlier and just kind of modify it for the other school. Make sure that you mentioned the correct school. Nothing worse than saying NC State in an answer for Chapel Hill because they're not going to like that, and vice versa. But you want to make sure that you have if you've really crafted a good essay, then you can take a sentence here and there and combine it to create a new response. But if you are doing it in a haphazard, just get the answers in as you have to kind of way, you won't probably do that as effectively. And I and Tracy, and I'm sure everyone is happy to help you make sure that you've got all your school's supplemental questions to make sure that you're, help you create this document if you want to work on it with us. All right, that's all I got. If you got questions, though, I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to look at some more schools. We've got a few minutes.
Is anyone applying to UNC Charlotte or UNC Greensboro in this group?
Yeah, I'm going to UNC Charlotte.
Okay, Thomas, good. Marjan, could we check UNC Charlotte and see if what they have for supplemental
Sure.
questions?
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna go to college search. Okay, so remember, there's two ways to look at this, and you want to check both ways. You can either go down to the bottom to see if they have a question listed here, or you can go to questions on the side, but you'll have to go through both of them anyway. It just takes you back to questions here. So these are all questions about your your application. So we'll just go through each section to make sure there's not like a major essay. This is just asking you about what you want to study. Your contacts isn't going to have it, but we'll look anyway. And of course, for you guys, you're going to actually be filling it out as you do this. I'm not taking the time to put in fake answers here, but let's go here. Are you a first generation college student? And that's true for you guys. So if I put yes, it doesn't require a question, but this is great that they're asking this because it won't harm your application, but most schools are really interested in providing more support for first gen students. So that's a definite good thing to see on the application. So residency, you're just going to say you live in North Carolina. You don't have any disciplinary history to report. Now here, if you, this isn't, I think, applicable to any of you guys, but if you see a question that says something like this, have you received any type of discharge from military service? And you put yes, then you would have that type of place to explain, but you guys aren't, that's not going to be applicable for you. But you might see that type of question here or there where it says, if you answer yes, then you have to explain additional information. All right, here we go. So this is where we get the, please describe why you're interested in attending UNC Charlotte. So Charlotte is asking you a very similar question to the App State one. Your statement lets us get to know you beyond your coursework and test scores. Your response will distinguish you from other qualified candidates within the applicant pool. So we would put this over here. Can you guys still see this? It's not where it was, so. Okay, it's 250, sorry. It's up to 250 words. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. This is not going to have an essay, but we'll just double check. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to college information to check my deadlines. So if I'm applying early action, it would be November 1st. If I'm doing regular decision, it's February 3rd. So I'm going to put this under November 1st. So does anybody have any thoughts on how you might answer the why our school question without having to, reinvent the wheel each time? Presumably the schools you're interested in have some similarities, and so you might be interested in App and UNC Charlotte for similar reasons. So you don't have to entirely rewrite your answer. There's the university alarm system going if you hear that in the background. You could use those in similar ways, but you need to make sure that you're saying something specific about the school. So I would either, if you've been on a campus tour for Charlotte, or if you really like the city of Charlotte, or there's there's a program that they offer that you're super excited about, mention that specifically. As Laura was saying at the beginning of this, you guys have a ton to say about App State. You grew up around the university, you've spent a lot of time there, your experience with Upward Bound, all of those are great reasons to say partially why you're interested in App State. So you can take, like, if you're interested in a major that is offered at both schools, you can talk about it and then share that in both of your responses, but you need to have something specific about the school in each of those answers, or else it'll feel generic and they won't feel special. We want to make them feel special. Any other schools in the last couple of minutes? Well, all right. If you guys haven't done your Chapel Hill ones, seize the day. Now's the time. Think about those answers. Review your essay if you haven't looked at it, your main essay in a while, and make sure that you're not just saying the same thing in a new way. You want to make sure that you're saying something in addition to whatever you said in your essay. And please, please, please don't put your answers in that text box until someone has looked at it with you. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you guys.